Welcome to another video from explainingcomputers.com. A few months ago I looked at this, the NanoPi NEO4 single-board computer from FriendlyELEC. And now they sent me this, its little brother, the NanoPi NEO4, which at the time of making this video in November 2018 is the physically smallest and the cheapest single-board computer based on an RK3399 system on a chip. So let's go and take a closer look. So here we have the NanoPi NEO4 in its rather typically sized single-board computer box. But if we look inside, it's a very small board. So if we let's take a look inside here, if we can get in, there we are, like that. And hopefully, it's in various bags. And we've got an antenna. Yes, there is a wireless networking on this board. But if we open things up here, crinkle, crinkle, it's all ready to get out. As you can see, as I said, it is a very, very physically small single board computer, let alone a single board computer based on an RK3399. And just to give you an idea how small this board is, here I've got a ROC Pro 64, which was the first RK3399 board I looked at, which is clearly massively bigger than this board. And here I have a NanoPi NEO4, which is in fact the same form factor as a Raspberry Pi, and you can see it's just so much bigger than that tiny little board over there. It really is a massive difference, isn't it? Let's just compare this to it. This is sitting in a nice little heatsink, the NanoPi NEO4, and if you're wondering, is there a nice heatsink like this for the NanoPi NEO4? There is. We'll look at that later on. But let's just compare that to a Raspberry Pi, which is the same size, but probably easier to compare on screen here. And you can really see, yes, it really is. This is a very small board. This board with NanoPi NEO4 is a 60 by 45 millimeters compared to a 85 by 56 millimeters for a Raspberry Pi 3 or similar sized boards. And if we look at the smallest board I've ever looked at, which is one of these, let's bring that in here if we can somehow get them all on screen there for you. This is a Raspberry Pi Zero, which, as you can see, let's do that, is smaller than the NanoPi NEO4, but not much. So this is a very small board with such connectivity on it. So let's move things inside and take a closer look at the board. And as we do so, I should tell you that this costs $45 in November 2018 from the FriendlyELEC website. Although it is an introductory offer, it will rise eventually to $49.99. Now, this, as I've said, is an RK3399 based board. You might be thinking, where is the system on a chip? Well, it's underneath. We just flick the board over, you can see it's under here. There you can see the ROC chip RK3399. And this is a hexa-core chip, 6 cores. It's got 2 ARM Cortex-A72 cores running at up to 2 GHz and 4 ARM Cortex-A53 cores running at up to 1.5 GHz. And there's also an ARM Mali T864 GPU. So we've got a lot of power on this tiny little board. The system on a chip really dominates the base of the board here, doesn't it? And it will get rather warm. It does need a heatsink. We'll be fitting that later on. Also, on the underside of the board, you can see we've got a micro SD card slot, which we use to boot the board. And we've also got one of 2 RAM chips. One is here, the other RAM chip is on the top of the board. You can see it down there. And this board has got from those 1 GB of DDR3 1866 RAM. And if I had to criticise this board at all, it would be for the amount of RAM. 1 GB of RAM isn't bad. It's the same amount of RAM as a Raspberry Pi 3, but this is otherwise a very powerful board, so it might be let down slightly by the amount of RAM we've got here. This said, we've got lots of very good things on the board which kind of make up for that in many, many ways. Not least, we have got here on the board this Wi-Fi and Bluetooth module. So we've got onboard Wi-Fi and Bluetooth on this board. And if we look at the front here, you can see we've got a USB-C port, which is used both to power the board and can be used for USB 2 OTG connections. And then next to that, we've got a full-size HDMI socket. Nice to see a full-size HDMI socket on such a small single-board computer. And this can support up to a 4K output at 60 frames a second. And then next to that, we've got a socket for an eMMC flash module, so you can boot the board from eMMC flash plugged into there if you wish. And then next to that, we've got the first of 3 GPIO connectors on the board just around here. And this is an 8-pin connector, and 4 of these pins are for a UART connector for things like debugging, things like that. But the other 4 pins are headers for a USB 2 port. So you can add an extra USB 2 port to this board by using these pins. Now, talking of USB ports, around the corner here we have a little stack of 2 Type A sockets, and you could be forgiven from the colours here for thinking both of these are USB 3, but they aren't. The top Type A socket here is USB 2.0, the bottom one is USB 3.0. But even so, having those 2 sockets there, having one USB 3 is clearly really good, and given we've got the header here to connect another USB 2 port, and we've got USB 2 OTG connectivity via the USB-C port that gives us power, you've got lots of connectivity on this board. And talking of that, the other socket here you can't have missed, it dominates the board. We've also got this gigabit Ethernet socket also on this tiny little single board computer. If we scurry on round to the second long edge, we're back into the territory of GPIO connectors. We've got 2 of those here. This one is 8-pin, this is for I2S, and this is a 40-pin connector with all kinds of different connections on it. So for example, here we've got connections for a power key, for PWM, we've got 8 general GPIO pins, and we've got connections here for PCIe ×2. So we've got lots of options here to add to the board, to add peripherals to the board, and for the board to control things using this connector. Finally, on the last edge, we've got one of those very, very tiny Wi-Fi antenna connectors. And next to that, we've got a CSI connector, a camera serial interface connector, a MIPI compatible connector, which will support up to a 13 megapixel camera. And so there we have it, the NanoPi NEO4. Certainly a very small single board computer, a very tiny form factor, but nevertheless with a great deal of connectivity and other features packed onto a board of this size. Now, just before we test this board out, it would be very wise to fit it with some sort of cooling, put a heatsink on it to stop the RK3399 on the bottom here getting too hot. And as we saw earlier, the big brother to NanoPi NEO4 is the NanoPi M4, which can be fitted with this fantastic custom heatsink on the base, this great big piece of aluminium. And a similar heatsink is available from FriendlyELEC for the NanoPi NEO4. Unfortunately, they've sent it to me, and here it is in this rather crinkly little bag. Let's get it out. I do like these heatsink. Don't quite know why, they just seem really nice things. And it's in a little bag, and it's sealed, but we can get in, do not worry. Mr. Scissors is here, he is, ready to help us out. He can help us get in this little bag, hopefully up there. Just let's cut it through the top, and there we are. Thank you, Mr. Scissors. You've got us into a bag. And there we are, that's the heatsink. So the board just sort of fits on top of this. It goes sort of on top of there like that, and has to have a thermal pad in the middle. So I'll go on with fitting this to the board. And there we are, the heatsink is now fitted. I really do like this. If you are going to get one of these boards, I really would recommend getting this heatsink unless you've got some other really cunning plan for cooling the thing. And it is worth noting you've got these mounting holes on the side. These are 5 per side, and these are standard 1/4 inch threads. Here's a standard 1/4 inch photography thread, and they screw in. They go in about I think 5 or 6 mil, so that's really handy if you want to mount this in all kinds of ways. But there we are. There we have our NanoPi NEO4 all ready to be tested out. Right, I've now got the NanoPi NEO4 all connected up. As you can see, it's all running, and indeed here we are on a desktop running on it. This is actually on a Lubuntu desktop. And if we go to the web, here is the page for the NanoPi NEO4 on their website. There we are, this is at the top there. And as you can see, there's various operating systems available. There's something called Friendly Desktop, which is based on Ubuntu, and indeed Lubuntu, which is also lightweight Ubuntu. So I thought I'd try a couple of these out. It's worth saying, I think, that this board is very much intended as a developer board, but some people might wish to use it for other purposes, playing media, that type of stuff. So I thought I'd try that out. And I've been on a little journey trying this out. I would point out that I haven't been able to get Wi-Fi working in this version of Lubuntu. I'm on a wired connection here at the moment, which is working absolutely fine. And Chromium obviously works, as you can see. We can run up things like LibreOffice, which works absolutely fine, comes up pretty well. That's rather nice. We can type hello and all things like that. Let's get rid of that, because we don't really want to say, oh, go away, go away. But of course, you might want to do things, not least like, say, playing back media. This is obviously something you might use a small board for as a media player. And if we go to the menu here, you will discover under a sound and video, there is a videos little application there. which obviously is used for playing videos. And when that comes up, there we are, there's a video. There's a demo video provided with the operating system. I can't use it because it's actually the trailer for Batman Begins or something, so I can't play you that for copyright reasons, so I've replaced it with an Explaining Computers video. And if I play that, you will discover that it doesn't work. You can see we've got no pictures there. We've got the audio but no pictures. That clearly isn't ideal, is it? So that doesn't obviously help us very much. Now, the hardware is capable of playing that video. You can actually get to that through the terminal, that same application. If I run that up, and I think it's sitting in the buffer there, if I just press that, there you are, we're playing 1920 1080 video very smoothly, no issues at all. So clearly the actual hardware here is capable of playing that video. It doesn't do it very well in Lubuntu. Well, not with any pictures at the moment. Let's get out of that. Don't like me looking at me. Very confusing. And it's also worth pointing out there's various tests they've got here which we can use. That one there, for example, runs through various things, which gives us good graphical tests. There's a nice little horse rotating there, and it gives us frame rates and things like that. Let's put this over there so you can see all the frame rates as they come up. That's working absolutely fine. Let's just let this run through to something more interesting. Yes, here we have a nice box spinning around. There's all sorts of really interesting tests come up, and I think they all make it very clear you should be able to do good graphical stuff with the NanoPi NEO4. However, I don't think we can do it in Lubuntu, so let's change over to another operating system. And by the magic of filmmaking, here we are in FriendlyELEC, which I've got working quite nicely. Not least how I've got Wi-Fi working at the top here, which is obviously good, and I've managed to install Kodi to give us some very good media playback. And just before I show you that, it's worth pointing out that some people have reported in forums and various places they've had problems installing things on the NanoPi NEO4 and M4 and that type of device. And I think one of the issues they face is there are two users set up on these operating system images. I think the normal or standard user, whatever they call it, username Pi and password Pi, and then a root user, username root and password FA. And you've got to use the root user if you want to install things and make them work. So just to show you that, I'll open up a terminal, and I can't make this text any bigger, so I'll have to zoom in like this, make it all fuzzy. But to actually move across to the different user, we're currently here as Pi, you'd have to go us to su and root, ask you for your root password, then FA, put that in. We're now in as root rather than as Pi, and we could therefore do an apt get update just to make sure everything is updated before we try installing stuff. I of course don't need to do this because I've run it very recently, but we'll let it run through just to keep us amused. Very exciting, there we are. And after that we could do an apt get install and Kodi, which of course I don't need to do because I've also installed it recently. It's already the newest version, as it knows. Anyway, that just shows you how you get Kodi installed and working. And if we just run it up, sometimes takes a second because it's quite a big program. It was just going to prove me wrong there, wasn't it, by coming up straight away. And I've got some videos here. I think I've got one under videos and same one we've just been looking at, Haiku, and that's playing fine. Maybe slightly worse than we saw running in Ubuntu from the console, but still running pretty well. And there we are, exactly as you expect. You're probably a better judge than me how this would look watching it on the YouTube and stuff. Anyway, that is me. That's stopped me pressing X in Kodi and go back to the main menu. And I've also here obviously put in, under add-ons, I've put in YouTube because you'll want to know how that works as well. And so I've gone to YouTube, and we'll go to, say, a search, and where should we go? Explaining Computers, of course, because I've got the rights to show you videos there. So we'll try those out, and we'll try playing, say, that recent video on another single board computer, and hopefully once it's buffered, having a little think. It is playing, so that's also working fine. Looks slightly softer, that to me, might be because of the speed of my internet connection. It's actually reduced the resolution a bit, but it plays as well as the system allows it to play. So there we are. That showed you, let's just stop me because I found that very strange. That just shows you how we can actually use the NanoPi NEO4 as a very effective and very tiny media player. The NanoPi NEO4 is a very interesting single-board computer. Not least, I still find it extraordinary we can get so much computer power, so much connectivity in a board of this form factor. And since I made the last segment of this video looking at Kodi, I've been trying out some other things with this board. Not least, I tried adding an additional USB port on the header, and that's allowed me to connect a USB flash drive in addition to a keyboard and a mouse without having to use a hub. And I've also experimented with OpenMediaVault with the storage on a UHS 2 microSD card to create a tiny NAS that shows how a NanoPi NEO4 can be used as a pocket server. In addition, I've also had the board connected to my television with a wireless keyboard to test it out as a lean-back YouTube player, and that's also worked very well indeed. But now that's it for another video. If you've enjoyed what you've seen here, please press that like button. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, and I hope to talk to you again very soon.